What's up, everybody? Thanks for tuning in to Coralpalooza 2020. I am joined now by Anastazia Banaszak, and she is a researcher at the Autonomous University in Mexico, and she's going to be presenting today about raising some coral babies. So take it away.
Thank you very much, Alex. Hi, everyone. Thank you for joining. I'll be talking to you about the work that we do here in Mexico to raise baby corals and outplant them onto the reef. Here you can see a series of photos starting from the upper left and going clockwise to show how we collect the coral eggs and sperm. We then take them to the lab to assist in fertilization and culture the embryos and larvae. The larvae then settle onto substrates that we make, and we outplant them onto the reef and monitor their growth. We even have corals, such as the one on the left at the bottom, that are now reproducing themselves. First, to make sure we all know a little bit about what a coral is, it's an animal made up of polyps that lives in symbiosis with tiny algae and deposits a calcium carbonate skeleton. So it is an animal, a vegetable, and a mineral all at the same time. The animal and the algae have a wonderful relationship. The algae use the energy from the sun to produce sugars. So there are the algae. So the algae use energy from the sun to produce sugars in a process called photosynthesis, which they pass to the animal. The animal in return gives the algae nutrients and its waste to help make the sugars. You may also have heard of bleaching, which is where the animal and algae part ways, and you see the coral skeleton, which is white. The algae are the ones that give the coral its brown gold color. This parting of the ways may lead to the coral dying if it lasts long enough. So how does a coral grow? A coral is a colonial organism. That is that it grows by reproducing polyps, as you can see on this picture. Basically, you can see sort of little buds next to the main polyp, and so those are going to produce new polyps. The colony then grows and will be made up of thousands of polyps and be thousands of years old, as you can see this colony here. Some colonies are massive forms like this one, or they can be branching like this one. The species here at the bottom is Acropora palmata, or alcone coral, and that's the one that we mostly work with in our lab. So how do corals reproduce? Well, they have two different methods to reproduce. One is known as sexual reproduction, that's shown here. This is sort of the life cycle of the coral. So basically in the summer, on some 1 or 2 nights in the summer, the adult corals will release eggs and sperm in an event called spawning, which is synchronized. The eggs and sperm from different colonies will then fertilize and form embryos, which you can see at the very top, which then grow to form swimming larvae. These then look for a substrate to settle down and possibly live for thousands of years. So they have to be very choosy as to which place they choose to settle down. The larvae then undergo an amazing process called metamorphosis to turn itself into a polyp. The polyp then reproduces itself many times to produce a colony. The other way that corals, so basically here, this photo shows how we collect these eggs and sperm from the colony. The other way that corals reproduce is by fragmentation or asexual reproduction. Coral branches can break due to storms, ship groundings, or jet skis, for example. Restoration programs mainly use this type of reproduction for use in restoration. In my lab, though, we are doing research on how to use sexual reproduction to produce coral babies for use in restoration. So this is just an example of using fragments in a nursery, and that's how most restoration programs use corals and grow them in nurseries to then take out onto the reef. So this is basically a video just to show you how we collect the eggs and sperm. The packets that the corals release have eggs and sperm together But because they come from the same mother, they cannot fertilize between them. Instead, they slowly float up to the surface of the ocean, and the waves break up these packages, freeing them so that they can then mix with the eggs and sperm from other colonies and form new corals. So here you can see a really nice spawning event. There's many corals spawning, and you can see that this is the surface of the ocean where these packets are basically breaking up. So we take advantage of these spawning events to collect a small fraction of the spawn, bring it to the lab, and culture the eggs and sperm until they settle onto substrates that we provide. You can see that we are doing what's called assisted fertilization, which we do in the boat. Then we bring this back into the lab. We wait for a while the eggs and sperm fertilize, and then we clean up the sperm and then culture the growing embryos and the larvae. So we then grow the corals up in aquaria, and once they are bigger, we take them to a nursery in the ocean, and we let them adapt to their new environment. We then outplant them onto reefs that have been damaged or even degraded. So these corals are now producing their own babies. So the coral that you can see on the right-hand side at the bottom, we could see that it was producing its own babies last year. However, keeping them in aquaria is quite expensive. So my team and I are researching on how to reduce costs and to produce many more corals. To do this, we have teamed up with Seacorp International to solve the problem of how to restore hectares of damaged reefs by reducing handling time in aquaria and reducing labor costs. We now outplant coral babies that we have produced in the lab when they are still quite young, sometimes 2 to 4 weeks old. These colonies are now growing and soon will hopefully be capable of reproducing themselves too. At the very bottom on the right-hand side, you can see a coral that is about 15 centimeters high and hopefully soon will be ready to reproduce. Another way to upscale is to train lots of people to apply these techniques in other parts of the Caribbean. We are also developing labs that are mobile and low cost, so they can be built in very remote sites where a lot of coral reefs are found. For example, we teamed up with staff from the University of Belize at their field station in Calabash Key to try this technique out, and it worked really well. In the middle photo on the bottom, you can see a substrate with lots of coral babies settled on it. We also are trying new and innovative techniques, such as cryopreservation, to freeze sperm from different colonies and use them to fertilize eggs at a later stage. This is really important at the moment, given the presence of the scleractinium coral tissue loss disease here in the Caribbean, which is decimating certain species of corals. We are involved in a project to rescue sperm and freeze it, while others are rescuing colonies and maintaining them in tanks to see if they will reproduce. Using frozen sperm, we have successfully fertilized eggs, and the polyps we produced grew successfully to form small colonies. Eventually, we hope to be able to restore large sections of reefs using all of these different techniques. And all of this work has been thanks to the great efforts of my dream team, some of which are pictured here. So thank you for listening, and if you have any questions, you can contact me or follow our research on Facebook and Instagram at Corallium, La Vida de un Coral. Thank you very much.